Hey guys, welcome to Invictus Cockpits. We're in the shop today and we're going to talk about how to take a Thrustmaster Warthog and make it awesome. Alright guys, so a few days ago I took my old Thrustmaster Warthog and did a complete redo of it. I sandblasted it down, took it completely apart, sandblasted it down, recoated it with a Cerakote ceramic coating, and did a few other upgrades to it. And I was showing it to my friend Tim at Alert 5 Design Studios. He said, I gotta have one. So I said, well, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna order another one, I'm gonna make it for you. I'm gonna show the folks on YouTube how I did it so they can maybe do it themselves. A couple of people have already reached out to me and are sending me their Warthogs for a custom job. But here's a few things that we did. First, I took it all the way apart, sandblasted it down to the bare metal, and coated it with Cerakote. So if you can look at it, it's got a nice, it's almost a satin finish, not quite flat, but it's much more realistic looking. It has a really soft texture. The lines that you see in the Thrustmaster finish are gone from the sandblasting. And then the most noticeable part that I did was I engraved the lettering, the white lettering on the top that's in the Real Jet. A couple of things else that I did is I replaced the tail grip with our Invictus angled adapter for the Warthog. It also fits the Cougar sticks if you have one of those, but this gives it an 11-degree forward cant like in the Real Jet, or 11-degree forward angle like in the Real Jet. I replaced the springs on the trigger to give it a more snappy feel, more realistic feel, and all the hat switches except for one. This guy here doesn't have a spring, but the other hat switches in here, I was able to disassemble them, put in a stronger spring and give it a snappier, stronger feel. So that's some of the upgrades that I made to it. And we're gonna take a brand new one, take it apart, and do it all over again.
Now let's do a quick unboxing video of the Thrustmaster Warthog. I gotta give Thrustmaster credit here. Their packaging is next level. It's really great. I probably should have shortened this up, but I didn't, so bear with you. Alright, notice the striations and just imperfect finish on the Thrustmaster original. I mean, this straight out of the box, never even touched it before, so you can see all the like cross lines and the marking from the molding, and the finish just isn't great. One of my biggest complaints about Thrustmaster. The other one is the tail coming out of the bottom of it. Now we're going to disassemble. This takes about 20 minutes. There's a whole lot of screws. You got to be really careful. There's a bunch of wiring to disassemble. Removing the switches is kind of tricky, so you want to go slow and make sure you do it correctly so you don't break anything. If you want to see how to take it apart in more detail, I've got a video. I'll drop a card in here, but it's a video on how to replace the tail at the bottom with one of our angled adapters, and it goes in detail about how to take it apart. When you're taking the trigger out, make sure you are careful with the springs. They will shoot across the world at you. And then one thing I would do is snap a picture of all this wiring before you start taking things apart, because it all has to go back the same way or it's not going to work properly. When you get into it, and you'll see me in a minute start removing some of the hot glue that holds the switches in place, a little bit of rubbing alcohol will soften that a little bit, make it a little easier to do. But you can just kind of pull it out, and then when you get to the switch, there are little tabs on the switch. Just use a small screwdriver or something to depress the tabs, but you're going to want to be really careful to make sure that you don't break the tabs, because they're very easy to break. So what I do is I lay the screwdriver all the way across the tab so that it touches both sides of the switch body, and when you press down, that way it doesn't push it down inside the switch body and break it. Hope that makes sense, because I did not video it. You just got to go through and take all these little switches apart. And I'm only really showing the painting and, you know, making it look good. But another thing I did is I replaced all the screws that you see that come with the Thrustmaster. They're zinc plated screws and they're not very strong. So I replaced them all with much more high quality screws with a black oxide finish. Another thing that I did is I went through and took all the springs out of the hat switches, the 4 directional switches, and replaced them with stronger springs and put beefier springs in the trigger to give it just a little stronger, more snappy feel, like the real part has in the F-16. I tried to speed this up. This is like 8 times normal speed, so, you know, it's just not a lot to see here, but bear with me. We'll get through it together. And you take it all the way apart and you get all the metal pieces off to the side. You can kind of see, you know, what you're working with here. And then we're just going to move on to the sandblasting cabinet. I got really short on the video with the sandblasting cabinet because it all looks the same. Also, you'll notice that it's not doing a great job of pulling the finish off. I found a clog in my, or I figured out I had a clog in my sandblaster, so it was going a little slow. That's not the most durable finish in the world. It just had a clog and wasn't putting enough media on it. So got that switched out and it goes a lot faster, the rest of the parts. There's something really satisfying about sandblasting something like this. I don't really know why, but it's one of the weird things that I randomly enjoy that shouldn't really be that fun to do, but it is. Alright, and then when it's all said and done, nice clean base finish. Nice and smooth to accept the Cerakote that I'm going to put on it. Now, before you see me handle it with my bare hands, you don't want to do that with Cerakote. So I do degrease that thoroughly, clean it with a degreaser and acetone. And then we're going to get some of this Cerakote C40 Bright White. It's air dry Cerakote. Very expensive stuff, but it's pretty cool. Now, the reason I'm putting this, or I'm painting the top of it white, is because I want to engrave the black off and just leave the white paint showing through for the lettering, so that it doesn't have that aluminum metallic look, and it actually looks like the real jet and has a bright white look to it in the text. I'm not going to show you painting the whole thing, and yes, I know I need a spray booth. I got to do it. I just haven't yet. So for now, everything gets overspray. Alright, we're going to come back and hit it with the black. And I really love Cerakote. It's such a cool finish to work with. A little tricky to learn, but man, it looks good. Alright, you can see a nice even coat here when I hold it up in front of the camera. Now, I probably got that black coat a little thick, and you're going to see that when we go to the laser here in just a second. Alright, what I'm not showing you is I positioned the text carefully before I started engraving, and you can see how it's not doing a great job of pulling the black off here. I actually ended up having to go back and sandblast this off and redo it so that I could get the bright white, because that black coat was just too thick. You can see the weapon select text looks pretty good, but the rest of it just doesn't come through like you'd want it to. So it took me twice to get this right on this particular part. But I didn't record it, so my bad. It looks the same though, as far as the process. And then here's the finished results. You can see the angled adapter on there with our custom nut that looks like the real thing. Much better finish. It has a much smoother feel to it also than the original. And then that text really makes it stand out. That's where the money shot is right there.